Welcome to the Project Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Gorey, mom of a sweet baby girl and an ever-evolving entrepreneur. On this show, we will explore the intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship. We will share stories of moms just like you and me with the goal of fostering community and comfort in knowing that we are not alone in our experiences. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to ensure you get all the updated episodes and releases. Welcome to today's episode of the Project Mom Podcast. Today, we will be chatting with Chantelle Selkridge, who is a mom of three and owner of Rooted Bush Tea, which is a business that offers access to a variety of quality Caribbean teas to Canada and was created out of a desire to share those Caribbean wellness practices with her family. So Chantelle, welcome. Thank you for being here and chatting with me.
Thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you for providing this platform.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I am really excited. And I don't think I've mentioned this to you yet in our couple of back and forth conversations leading up to this, but when we first met briefly on that networking call a couple of weeks back, I remember quite vividly being in a breakout room with you and your children were there. They're present with you on this call. And I cannot tell you how grateful I am to have seen that and to see your willingness to show up as you were that day. And I say this so positively because I'm working on giving myself that permission to do that, to show up for myself, my personal goals, my business goals, when everything else can't, right? When other situations and support teams can't quite show up the way that I expect it should, I'm working on giving myself permission to do that for myself. So I really honor you for showing up that way, and it sticks very vividly in my mind. So I just wanted to start with that and say thank you for doing that.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I know I shared briefly with you too, right? The goal of this is to have those conversations and to create a community, among us women who are doing this grappling of between a life-changing decision to be a mom and to choose to run a business and just show up for ourselves in other aspects. So it's really important that we have these conversations and these dialogues. And again, I'm just so excited. So with that, and my little intro, let's dive in. I would love to have you share a bit more with us about your motherhood journey and where in that timeline did becoming a business owner fit into that. So if you could share with us an overview of that, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. So my first son, my kids have a huge age gap in between my first and the last two. So I was pregnant with my first son and had him when I was 18. So that was just the year after finishing high school. So he was born in 2008. Sorry, my little, now I'm just thinking back to those times.
I bet.
And I went to college a year after having him. So I went to school for community outreach and development. Little did I know that getting a job in that field would not be the greatest thing.
Not quite what you expected.
Yeah. When I heard about it, so it was community work or social work. Social work was so common, and I always kind of like to deviate off the common path. And then I figured also it would be competitive because of that. But also, once again, it was just common. So I found out about community work, and it was a broader version of social work. And I felt when I read the description, it was just so inspiring. And I felt I could make such a bigger impact, because social work is more one-on-one. Community work is being in the community, advocating for change, all that stuff. So anyway, lo and behold, that wasn't really working out. It was for a little bit. I got a contract job, and I'm oh, these jobs seem like they're just contract here and there or not stable. So fast forward to 2015 or 2014, I guess, when the idea started. No, I think it was 2015, because I actually launched that business pretty fast. So,
when you have an idea, just go for it.
Yeah.
That's half the battle.
Seriously. So when that happened, I don't remember how the idea first came. I think it was I just loved dancing, African Caribbean dance. And I realized all of it was in Toronto. And I just go by that phrase of if there's a book you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then write it yourself. So that was when I decided to launch Akuma Afro Dance, which was my dance company. And not that I knew nothing, but in regards to teaching, I would say
Sure.
teaching wasn't my thing. You know what I mean? I just knew culturally wise. And I was like, this is just natural in my body, so I'm going to do it. But I didn't teach. So what I did was I contracted a dancer, because obviously I did not want to butcher any traditional dances or anything like that. I contracted a drummer, and I tried to raise funds for my own space because I found space in Brampton. I live in the city of Brampton. I found space that was kind of lacking for dance. Fundraising for that did not work out. Some people, I'm sure, still think that I have a studio. I'm like, no, I ended up renting. But because I put it out there so early, like I was like, hey, and I went on Facebook and all this stuff, right? So I ended up renting out a space and I launched it. And I did some surveys beforehand of what they would love and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it started off slow, but I actually did have, like at least 3 clients, like children, which was exciting, but only 1 adult or something like that. But
okay,
fast forward into going more into motherhood and then this journey of Rooted Bush Tea, COVID hit and Akoma Afro Dance started to die off, right? Because everything had to shut down. And I wasn't able to pivot online. I think it was just a mixture of like due to funds, because I was still contracting out dancers. I could have taught the children, but I don't know, something I guess just was no longer motivating at some point. I guess just COVID overall. Yeah, I think it just hit. So that also came when I was pregnant. My son was just turning 1, my second son. So,
okay.
So he had just turned 1. And I found out that I was pregnant with my daughter, so my third. So all of this stuff was going on. And I went back to work, and it was retail, which I'm tired of. I didn't want to do it. It's not in my field, wasn't my passion, but I was doing it because I needed a job, right? I needed to make money.
Yep.
With that being said, my father ended up being diagnosed with cancer, prostate cancer. I might be mixing up just a few months here and there. I think my father was diagnosed with cancer first, then a few time later, went to St. Kitts and Nevis. My son was 10 months and then came back, and went back to work. So in the time that my father was diagnosed with cancer, we were talking about herbs and stuff like that would be used back home. First of all, my parents were like, no one ever died before their time, or it was very rare. You know what I mean? When they say before their time, they mean like before old age, right? Unless
old age.
Unless something like happened, right? So allergies, all these things, like what? So we spoke about herbs that would be used traditionally to keep up with wellness. And that's when I realized, A, I was disconnected to that a little bit, well, quite a lot. And then B, we didn't have access to those herbs here in Canada. So I said, okay, I'm going to create this. Once again, just like with the dance company, I'm going to create this. So once I came back, so when we went to St. Kitts and Nevis, because that's where my parents are from, I collected some herbs there and came back, right? So once again, this was still 2020. My son was just turning 1, coming into it. We actually went to St. Kitts, to be exact, in 2019, the end of it, and came back 2020. So we stayed for about a month.
Okay.
So I went back to work. Then it got shut down again because of COVID. And then the dance as well, once again, shut down. So I was just like, okay, let me try to launch this business. It was rough. My son was home, but I felt like I could manage. But I was starting to get just tired with being pregnant with my daughter. It became harder. My daughter was born August 2020. So I had already registered the business, started to package some herbs a little bit and stuff like that. And just before I had her to, my midwife and stuff said, oh, you have to rest now because it seems like your cervix is pretty low. You can go into early labor, all that jazz.
Exactly what you want to hear, right?
Right? So I was like, I'm just going to relax then. So even like a month, 2 months before that, that's what was happening.
I love it. Well, I think you're highlighting so many great parts of the journey and the story. And when I say great, I don't necessarily mean happy, pleasant, great, but like the most impactful parts of this journey.
Right.
And it's so real.
Right.
When you think about what you went through and listening to your story in terms of the entrepreneurial journey to start, right? There's so many pivots that have to be made based on the other facets of your life, which is huge when the other facet is a living being, right? And you're growing a human being and you're having to take care of yourself physically, your loved ones, these people you're contracting out also, right? Are you doing what's best for them? Can you pay them? Can you continue to support them? And that's why it's so vital to be able to just say something needs to change. I need to take a pause. Maybe we pivot. So it's really inspiring to hear this progression for you because I think it's more common than most business owners like to admit also
Fair.
that perhaps this choice that I made isn't working out the way that I expected it to. It's not a failure. It's just the progression of the circumstances around me. What have I learned and what can I put into this new project? And for you, it's these T's that you were able to learn more about after going back to where your parents are from. So I really honor you for that too. I think it's like very impactful. I want to jump into a little bit about your motherhood journey quickly. So I have a million questions, but I want to start with how your motherhood journey looked for you when you had your first son. So you were much younger, not much younger. Let me not age you. Chantelle, let's not age you.
Hey, if you're not aging, you're dead. So I'm perfect.
That's true. I
That's
love
how I
that.
look at it.
Okay. Perfect. I'm going to use that from now on. I'm going to use that. I just turned 32 the other day, and I'm like, that's going to be my new mantra.
Happy belated. I'll be 33 in
Thank
August.
You. I'm loving 32 so far.
Yeah.
It's been probably my favorite age of my 30s, at least.
Nice.
Okay, so let's jump into a little bit the experience of when you were 18 and you had your first son and your endeavor to go into this community outreach work and community support work. And what were some of the biggest lessons that you learned during that period of being a young mom that was able to support you in this next motherhood experience when you had your second and your third children?
That's such a good question. You know what? When I had my son at 18, I was very naive. Like, I was just like, okay, I'm pregnant. Like, I figured it'd be hard because I didn't have the income, but I was at home, luckily. But it was hard because once again, I didn't have the income. I went back to school. I wasn't working while I was in school for the year. The second year I started to work and that became much more harder, but I survived and did it. I will say that at the time I was very into church. Like, I grew up in the church, Pentecostal. Shout out Malton Church of God.
Yeah.
Which is now called New Life Covenant Center. So at that time, I did face some backlash from family, some from church, but I also had a lot of great support in the church as well. So a lot of things I didn't have to pay for, like I got a stroller. And also my work, when I worked at Party Packagers, they gave me a little baby shower and, some supportive friends. Yeah. So luckily I got off to a good start in regards to just getting big ticketed items from just being support around me. It was hard emotionally. Honestly, it was mainly because of certain family members and feeling more isolated and shut out for having a child young. So that was definitely an emotional time. And I would say the hardest part for me. Luckily, the support of his dad, like my son's father and his grandmother, was really great as well. So actually having him and doing community work, that became, once again, it was honestly all around the mentality of family members making me feel like I was a failure. And even though I had gone back to school, and did everything I was supposed to do, quote unquote, right? It was like, well, you don't have a proper job, you were supposed to do it this way. And even though it's already happened, it doesn't do anything to keep dwelling on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For anyone listening, it does nothing to continue to make a young mother feel bad. You know what I mean? It doesn't teach anything. So so just navigating that. But honestly, my firstborn was the most chill. I think the universe, the Most High, knew what I needed in that time.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, very different than my young two. So when you ask me what I've learned, I guess, in that time from then to now, I would just say resilience. But I would also say that honestly, every time I had a child, it honestly became a new experience. So it's almost hard. Like I really have to sit and think about how I would relate that time to now, because it just feels like I'm learning all over again, especially because it was 11 years later. So times have changed. I mean, the good thing was that I had a hospital birth with my firstborn. He was overdue and all this stuff. And the last two, I had a home birth, midwives. It was great.
Yeah, you chose a different experience.
Yeah.
And you could.
Yeah, but I think it was just more so having more kids just kind of created more of a punch of like, now I really need to get myself into high gear, and I really need to make sure that something works and sticks, because I have more mouths to feed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but definitely just learning more about resilience. Like I made it through that time. I can make it through now, although it's different. They still have their emotional labors in different ways. I'll survive. And I say that even in a time where, like, just this morning I was crying, feeling overwhelmed.
Yes. Yes. I think the biggest thing, right, you can remind yourself is that this will pass. Yeah. And even though it feels so hard in the moment, thankfully there will be another side.
Yeah.
And you will get there. Before we jump into, because I definitely want to get into your current business some more, I want to talk just a little bit about this resilience piece, because I do honestly think that there's going to be some woman who's listening to this who has a similar experience to you, who perhaps has family who is expressing maybe some disappointment in their choices or their circumstances in which this woman has found herself. I would love to know if there's any advice that you have for that woman right now, knowing that you're now on the other side of that. You're 11, 12, perhaps maybe 13 years later at this point. I'm not going to do math in my head.
He's 14 now, but
he's 14 now. So, okay, I was getting there. I was almost there. Now that you're 14 years later of having gone through an experience where you were faced with perhaps some disappointment from family members or some frustrations around your situation. So do you have any advice for women listening who are in the midst of that right now?
Yeah, I'll try not to get emotional. I really will try.
You are welcome. You are welcome. It's your choice.
Honestly, I still feel like there's definitely some disappointment, but more so because, when you come from a home that's just more traditional, it's not even negative or anything bad to say on your family's part. It's just you go to school, you go to work, and that's it. An entrepreneurial journey doesn't make sense. So even at this point, it's like, okay, it's not necessarily about kids anymore, but it's just about like, what do you mean you want to be an entrepreneur? Oh, you're still going to get the safe job though, right? On the side. So I would just say, what is still getting me through, because I don't feel like I'm on the other side. It's just okay. I'm on the other side in one way, for sure, with my son being older, but now it's just another phase of something else. So to get through that, it's definitely a mindset, which is very hard. I battle with it every day. I really try to listen to like affirmations, inspiring music. I'm not heavily in the church anymore as I was before, but I'd still listen to my gospel music because it's just so inspiring. And I just try to lean on that, even if I have to cry it out while I'm listening to it. Like, it says I'm going to get through, but...
Yep. Thank you for the reminder. I need it. Yeah.
And being honest with your feelings too, because sometimes people, when they say like affirmation, like it becomes like where people think it's almost like denying your feelings. No, it's like honoring your feelings, but just also trusting yourself, trusting whatever you lean on, whether it's the universe, God, whatever, trusting in that and leaning on it. And then also, honestly, just finding your tribe. Find your tribe. Even if it's online, in person, whatever, you have to go to the library. The library by us has like mom programs.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah. So go to the mom program, join a mom Facebook group, search some hashtags on Instagram, whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
And lean on that community. If you need therapy, go for it. Try to find some free ones if financial issues get in your way. But yeah, and just really just stay focused. And it doesn't mean stay an entrepreneur, a sole entrepreneur if it's not financially thing, right? Work your job, even if it's just part-time, and find out what can I learn from this and take it to my entrepreneur journey. Or be focused on this is going to fund my entrepreneur journey. And eventually, even if it's slow, it's going to, you know what I mean? I'm going to use that to launch it.
Absolutely. I love that. And appreciate you keeping me honest in a sense of like, there's always going to be another phase. I think we would be slightly naive to think that there's going to be a part where it's like always rosy and we're going to get to a point where it's easy. And while there may be some times that feel easier in regards to being a mom, or the journey is different, right? The day-to-day challenges are different. So I appreciate you keeping me honest in that. And I love the thought of doing what you need to do in order to support your goals in this journey of being an entrepreneur. And I think something that came to mind as you were talking is I try to remind myself of this, of nobody else is living this life but you. Like, you're the one that has to be in the day-to-day. So while there are definitely times where we're faced with the opinions of others and how we should be doing things and the expectations of us, nobody else actually has to live the day-to-day that we choose but us. So is that something that we can manage, that we can navigate through, that we can be happy with, essentially?
Yeah.
So that's super important to remind ourselves of.
I love that you said, yeah, it's absolutely true. Like you choose what you can live with at the end of the day, you know? So I love that you said that. And I recommend a book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. I haven't finished it yet, but it's just such a great book. I've had it for years. And yet, once again, I have not finished it yet, but I'm like that. I have like several books I pick up, put down.
Sometimes it's a journey to finish a book.
It is. Right? There's enough on my plate.
Yes.
But it's a great book about honoring your intuition as a woman, and just as a being, and just all this stuff. So it's just getting into your intuitive wild nature.
Oh, I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll definitely link that too in the show notes. So I'll make sure. So Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Yes.
Okay. We will make sure we link that. I think while it is challenging to like fit some other things on our plate as moms and business owners, or hopefully business owners, I think there's always something to be said for allowing our minds to expand, right? If we can expand our awareness and allow in new thought processes, the opportunities are endless for us. So I think there's always opportunity to add a book or two in there to expand our mindsets a bit. So the current scenario with running Rooted Bush Teas. So when you look at this current business and the setup that you have, what does that look like in terms of support for you on the motherhood front in order to dedicate some time to making this business work now that you do have some extra mouths to feed? So what does that mindset and that support system look like for you?
Woo, girl. I'm not trying to put people on blast. I went to a networking event recently, okay? And it was like to see Wes Hall. I don't know if you know, he's on Dragon's Den now.
Okay.
He's a Jamaican Canadian. He was speaking. And then also another Isaac, I don't want to butcher his last name, Oluwari, I think. And so anyway, so they both have businesses. I was going to go see them speak, network. I did that. Turns out my daughter was crying all night. She had a hard night while me not being there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told by someone who was watching her that you shouldn't have gone. And it still now just makes me upset. So, and sad. Honestly, it makes me more sad than upset.
Yeah.
Like, I was angry in the moment, but it made me sad. So on the motherhood part, so it's like, even though I have that support in the sense that someone could have watched my kids, it doesn't feel like support because then I get into emotional guilt. Right? So then it makes me feel like the next time I want to go and do something, I can't. So that's really hard. Once again, on the motherhood part and Rooted Bush Tea, it took a long time to launch just because, once again, like I just didn't feel like I had that support. And I had to juggle, like watching them in the day. So what I would do was, on top of that, by the way, I was taking a herbalist course to further my knowledge of herbs.
Yeah.
So I had to end up, what I did was I just focused on the kids in the day. And then when they went to sleep, I would take like an hour or two studying. And then like, oh, this day I will try. And at first I wasn't in a rhythm. I would try to do too much at once. Like, oh, I'm going to try and build my website. Really, I should be breaking it down. Like, today, I'm going to finally sign up on GoDaddy or Shopify.
Yeah, one step at a time.
Yeah, and really breaking it down to feel like I'm actually accomplishing something. Because when I had those big things, I felt like I was doing nothing. And then like, oh, they're napping right now. Do I want to nap or do I want to pack one tea. So just choosing in between those. And Sundays I'm like, you know what, I'm going to nap. And other days I'm like, nah, I'm not going to nap. I'm just going to package them and go on my way. You know what I mean? Feel like I did something success. So I didn't actually fully launch. I think my business license was registered like March or May of 2020. I didn't actually launch and start selling teas like November 2021.
It takes time. Yeah, absolutely.
It really does. They're both in preschool, like daycare preschool, thankfully. So it has allowed me and given me more chance to really work on the business.
This was perfect. I think honestly, like when you think about balancing it all, like that's a perfect answer. It's exactly that. It's a balancing act. And some days it's a little bit more heavy on one side and some days it's a little bit more heavy on the other. I think it's naive to think that we're always going to have this like equal balance of all of it, and life ebbs and flows. So it's so true. And I think, right, you mentioned your youngest are now in preschool and daycare, and gives you more of that flexibility and that freedom. And it's funny because my mom had said to me, so the first year of my daughter's life was really hard for me. I was like, I do not like what's happening. This situation, I feel like I'm backed against a wall. This isn't it. Like, where am I? I didn't know where I was as an individual anymore. I remember having this conversation with my mom, and shout out to my mom because she is such a great listener and always wants to offer support and guidance. And something that she had said to me, which I know was meant well, I like ran with it in the opposite direction. She said to me, maybe you just need to pause until she goes to preschool. And I said, F that. What? I got to put my life on hold for 3 years? I was so upset.
I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
I was so upset. So while yes, it offers like so much freedom now, I appreciate the transparency behind the timeline it took you to actually get to a launch, right? You had this amazing idea. You're educating yourself on how to launch it technically, as well as supporting your knowledge to like further the experience of this business for yourself and for your customers. And it takes time. And I think for me personally, that's a big lesson of knowing that you can start an idea and sometimes all it takes is just one step to start, but trusting that it will come to fruition. And at some point, a support system is going to show up that allows you a little bit of space to do just that. But for me, I know that was hard. I was like, preschool, that's 3 years away.
Trust me.
Can't wait.
Right? And then there's the resentment of like, men don't have to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean?
Yes.
Like, by default, they're just like, yeah, I'm going out. Bye. And it's like, what? If they even say that, they just walk
I know. I know. Well, I remember
out.
my husband might kick me for saying this, but I remember in this first year, I had a lot of postpartum depression manifesting itself as rage. So I had a lot of rage episodes. And my husband and I would get in fights, not physical, like emotional arguments. And he would be able to leave. He would leave the house. And I was like, I am so upset that you can leave the house right now, because if I was to storm out, there's a baby.
Yeah.
There's a baby right here. So yeah, there's a level of resentment that comes along with that in this role. I want to talk a little bit. I have a question for you around the mom guilt piece, because I think when we think about it, we personally do a really good job of guilting ourselves without the added guilt that comes from perhaps that support system who has expectations of how things should be done. How do you navigate that? I know you said this particular instance is still saddening to you and frustrating. Like, how are you navigating that? Like, how are you still putting yourself out there? How do you still make the choice to go do something else, like another networking event or something for you?
Yeah, I think part of it, to be completely transparent, is me kind of minimizing them, like choosing which ones are really worth, as opposed to before, I'd probably just like be like, I'm going to go to all of them. So really choosing, which is not something that I encourage. But the other part, I think, is also knowing, which I'm trying to do more of and focus on, is knowing that I'm doing this for my kids. And it's not that they don't see me. It's not that, I drop them off to school, pick them up, I'm with them all evening. These networking events and stuff are not often, right? And even me, I'm going to be a vendor at 2 events coming up, Carabram in Brampton, and then another one. And even that, I'm like, oh, it's the whole weekend. You know, like it's going to be the whole weekend that I'm not going to see him. And I'm like, listen, Chantelle, you spent 2 years.
Yeah. Yep.
At home doing nothing but having these, you know what I mean? And it's a weekend, 2 weekends out of a whole summer. So you just have to kind of talk to yourself and check yourself. Honestly, you have to check yourself and feel no ways about checking those other people too, which I really do. And they don't like my mouth, but I mean, it's like if you're going to say, exactly.
If you're going to say something to me, be prepared for the response, probably.
Exactly.
I love that. So a question off of that, and this is one that I had as we came into this call, and this is not me suggesting that you should do this. I just am curious in your opinion. For weekends like that, like, do you feel that there is a place to bring your children to that? I think when we look at the business world as a whole, there's still very much a narrative of separation because it's very male-led, right? That the expectation of children being a part of these meetings or these networking events or, you know, these trade shows or whatever it is that we as women entrepreneurs are working on, that kids are present. So do you think that there is ever a role that your kids can play in those events? Or can we bring our kids to these events? Like, can we start to move in that direction?
Yeah. You know what? I wasn't planning on it, but I'm also prepared that I may have to bring them.
I get that.
So I'm like, what are all the ways? Phone, which I never said that I would do, but I love it now. Like YouTube, what can I do to keep them occupied? Food, they love food. It just makes them stay quiet. Or at least one of the days. Because I think the Friday is like a half day. So because it's a shorter day in the evening, I can bring them out to that and see how it goes, right? But I do think because of COVID, that it's really it's starting online, of course, like where people are getting used to seeing kids running around in the background or breastfeeding while doing an interview or something, like whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that eventually it's going to start to seep into the real world, especially as more mothers become entrepreneurs. And not even just entrepreneurs, but even as mothers start to climb the ladder and become more executives, management, and you have to just juggle certain things. I've brought my son, this was once again my older son, and it wasn't work, but I brought my son to school one time in college, actually probably a few times because my childcare dropped through, you know. But luckily, once again, he was a really chill baby. And everyone's like, oh, he's so cute, distracting the class, but it's fine. So I hope that it starts to change. And maybe as more kids start to come to these things, then you have just a bunch of little kids running around and they occupy themselves and we don't have to even worry about occupying them.
Yeah, right?
You know?
Playmates. Go do your own thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I do think so. And I'm positive for the future. And I'm just hoping, though, that that's the culture that starts to happen.
Yeah, I love that. Been having more and more of these conversations, obviously, for this project and this platform. And I'm starting to hear that narrative too. So I am genuinely hopeful as well that at least when my daughter's older, I can have her sitting next to me and do some of these and it won't necessarily be a challenge. Right now, she's at the point where she likes to, anything mom has, she has to have. So like we would probably be like halfway cut off in this recording if she was allowed to be in here currently. So there are challenges.
Yeah. Do you watch The Social?
I don't watch it.
On The Social, one of the moms, Melissa Grello, when she was like, when it was COVID, actually even just recently, she just had to be home and isolating for something, and her daughter was in the background while she's on TV.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
And I was just here for all of it. I was like, I just love this. I mean, I know in her head, like in Melissa Grello's head, she was probably frustrated. Like, can you be quiet while I'm talking? But, it just starts to normalize. Like, this is just real life. And this is just what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I always appreciate that, moments like that. Yeah. And perhaps the person it's happening to, it's not like the most ideal scenario, but yeah, I'm here for it too. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about your business itself and the perhaps practices that go along with that. I know you said you had educated yourself on these herbs and being able to bring them to Canada and have them more accessible for you and for other people that would find benefits from them. So I want to talk a little bit about these wellness practices. Maybe you can give us a little bit of an overview, educate us just a little bit on the benefits of them and kind of how you then bring this into your family and how do you incorporate this into your day-to-day?
Yeah. So bush tea, Caribbean healing, all that jazz is literally like a way of life. I don't even know if it was a thought per se. I mean, I'm sure it's a thought, but it's just so natural,
Yeah.
right? The healing practices and stuff. Like bush is like just any herb really that you just go in your yard and you just pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back home, St. Kitts Nevis, wherever throughout. You go in your yard, you pick up some fever grass, and we call it fever grass, but here it would be known as lemongrass.
Okay.
But fever grass, because it's great for fevers, and you just boil a bunch of stuff, mix it together, some spices, maybe some garlic or ginger and cinnamon, and you boil a big pot,
Mm-hmm.
and you have your tea when you're feeling any type of tickle in your throat, stomach ache. Honestly, like bush tea was for anything.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Yep. And we use it for baths traditionally as well. So fever grass was definitely one. We have sorrel, but sorrel was more a Christmas time drink cold.
Okay.
Because it would more so bloom at that time. But it has so many properties like high vitamin C and stuff like that, which is, I guess, why it blooms. Because I'm a firm believer, like anything that blooms within its time is for something. And it would make sense that even though it doesn't really get cold in the Caribbean, you know, that is kind of still where those type of things happen more at that time, right?
Yeah.
So the sorrel is there to provide for us and nurture us at that time. Soursop is known for its cancer properties, also to help. We would give it to babies to help them sleep. So if they're restless, you just get
ladies. I think we should take note of that one.
Yes,
definitely.
Yes. And even rubbing clove, like if they're teething, rubbing clove on their gums was a traditional practice that I didn't even know about until my third child is when my mom told me. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that. But I heard about essential oil clove, you know, being a thing. So, but this was just something traditional. She's like, I don't know why we did it. My mom did it. Thing did it. And it just passed down, right?
Yeah.
So traditional healing with herbs has always been a thing. And it's always, I think, just connected us to the land and knowing what's around us. I do feel like the younger generations and different islands have more herbs than others as well. So I really wanted to make it a point to continue the practice, especially St. Kitts and Nevis is so small. And we don't have as much as other islands, let's say Jamaica, Trinidad. So I wanted to bring that back and educate us. And then there's so many that people don't even really hear about. And I just love the funny names of some of them. Like one is like carry me seed because the plant looks like it's carrying seed.
Oh, how funny. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and there's one that's called like Jack in a Bush and I don't know, all these different
like right
things.
on the nose.
Yeah. Like it's
perfect.
But I would also say that traditional healing practices in the Caribbean also consist of prayer, dance, coming together. So really being a community. I find that was really important for mental health because obviously there was no term like, you know, mental health, but it was just a practice that was known that this is how we support each other, you know, lean on each other and keep wellness and community together.
Yeah.
So apart from herbs, I want to create that community and I want people to kind of lean on that and get a holistic idea of the modality of herbs and healing and that we've even used them for spiritual healing as well.
I love that. There's so much value in the physical use, right, of these herbs. When we look at, especially as moms, I think there's a lot of frustration around what path do we take to support our kids when they are sick, right? There's dueling sides, right? Do we offer Tylenol? Do we do vaccinations? You know, how do we support our kids through childhood colds and illnesses and things like that? And then there's also the piece of feeling connected to something a little bit larger than just your individual family, right? And the connection to the land and the ancestors of that land and where all of these education has come from is so important. And I love you wanting to build that community because I think moms could really use that too. And like, you're not alone in this. You don't have to figure out how to help your kid by yourself. And you're not the only one going through that. I love that. There's so much value in that. And I'm excited to learn more about these. I feel like the clove for teething is something that I need. I mean, my kid's like almost done with all of her teeth and we're not even at 2 yet. So, I mean, next
Nice.
time, I guess. But it's truly amazing to think just some of the more natural remedies are the most simple and perhaps more effective than just
Yeah.
masking whatever's happening. So there's so much opportunity there. Are your kids receptive to these practices and these like guiding principles?
Yeah, so far so good. Well, because the the younger two are 3 and almost 2, so they
Yeah,
just take whatever.
fair.
My daughter is a trooper. She, even if it tastes bad, she just, I don't know, she just goes for it.
I love that.
She just opens her, like, she's just such a trooper. My
Yeah.
3-year-old is like, no, give it to Lala, that's what he calls her. And like, so he's totally aware, and he's like, not. It depends on what it is, though, of course, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
it I'll do with honey. I'll get creative.
Okay.
Like I made a syrup recently. So like a cough syrup. So it's, with honey and stuff like that, but also with hibiscus, or make
Yeah.
like even an iced tea with the herbs. And so there's just creative ways for them to just get it in their system anyway for some general wellness. My 14-year-old generally is not but he would if he needs it. So like right now he's having some scalp issues. So I've been giving him like omega-3s, but I also made just a gentle like detox because usually skin issues are connected with the kidneys and livers. Doesn't mean you have like bad kidneys and livers, though I don't want to scare anyone.
Sure,
but
sure,
it's
sure.
just, an overload on it and stuff. So you want to gently assist it in cleansing out the system. So he's been a trooper with that, luckily. So
I love that. Well, I can imagine too, having like your kids be a part of your business in that sense makes you better, right? It gives you more experiences with how it can be related to your own customers and how you can present it as something that is beneficial for everybody. So I do think that being moms makes us better business owners in a variety of capacities and a variety of ways. So all of that is perfect. Every single one of those experiences of your kids is exactly perfect. It's what you need. I love that. Okay, so I think we're going to wrap this up pretty soon, but I want to just ask you kind of generally, as you go through this process of being a mom 3 times over, right? It's a different experience every single time. As you launch a business twice over, maybe 3 times over at this point, right? It's like every experience is so different. How do you be your own biggest advocate? How are you your own fiercest advocate for moving through this path and facing perhaps some of that resistance or expectation that you see? Like, how do we do that?
Being your biggest advocate, I don't want to sound cliche. It just comes down to trusting yourself, right? Because you can't be your biggest advocate if you don't trust yourself. You can't check people if you're unsure in yourself. They'll always have some type of unsurety, but unsure in a certain capacity, right? So you have to believe in yourself, believe in your business, more so believe in yourself. Because honestly, sometimes businesses come and go and you could believe in a business and it didn't work. But if you believe in yourself, you can acknowledge when to pivot, that you'll find another idea, something else will come to you. You know what I mean? So it's not just the business itself, it's you. So knowing that you are the source, you are the moneymaker, you are the attraction. It's you, it's your story. Knowing that will help you be your biggest advocate because it's all coming from you. So when someone wants to, I don't know, tell you about your business or tell you why you shouldn't do something, you'll be like, excuse you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, who do you think you is? Like,
Yeah. Please stop talking.
Yeah. And still believing in yourself, even in those times that you don't really believe in yourself. I don't know if that makes sense, but you'll have those days that you'll doubt yourself for sure. But once again, we touched on it earlier. You just have to know that it's temporary. It shall pass. There'll be ebbs and flows, ups and downs. And then also just making sure you're working towards that goal. That imposter syndrome, like when you talk about advocating for yourself and that imposter syndrome comes in, it's like, I had to finally tell myself, especially with dance, I had to be like, okay, so this imposter syndrome is here. Where is it coming from? Is it me or is it other people? And if it is me, where do I feel like I lack and how do I get better? So I took my herbalism course. You know what I mean? Even though that's in Western medicine, I'm able to use that foundational knowledge to apply it to Caribbean herbs, right? So that made me feel less in that way. And I'm like, no, I've spent time in this. It's a part of me ancestrally. And then I also chose to be more educated on it in another way. So
yes,
just doing that and, affirmations and all that stuff, that will definitely ground you to be your biggest advocate.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. I think I have goosebumps actually from this right now. I think when we think about moving forward, it's twofold in a sense, right? You trust yourself, but also, like you said, on the days that, and there will be days that perhaps you doubt what's happening, there's a larger trust that has to be that this journey is the right journey. You've made the right decisions up until now. Do you have to make a different one? Trust that you will make the right choice for you in this moment, and that there's a larger path at play.
And I also find we're impatient. We're impatient with the process. Mm-hmm. 1 year in or 6 months in, we're like, wait, what do you mean I don't have any sales? Or what do you mean I have one or two? I started off after I launched in maybe February, once I launched my website. Finally, I got a few sales and I was like, oh, it's rolling in. And now it's just dead. Luckily, I'm still waiting on some new herbs to come in. But I'm but when you start to connect with other business owners, which is really important, and hear their stories, not just see their highlights, but hear their stories of how they've been in it for 8 years, 10 years for it to come to fruition. It's not an overnight thing. I think that also really helps and puts in perspective, okay, this is a long haul, so be prepared for a long haul.
Yeah, that is so important. And thank you for highlighting that, because I think there's this part of us that's and this has been a narrative for me of if this was meant to be, it should be easy. And that's not the case. That's not necessarily the case. And it's, what do I need to do to support myself through these stressful times? Because things that are meant to be will also be stressful, will also present challenges that you have to navigate yourself through. And then identifying, to your point, is this doubt or stress or concern coming from me, or is it coming from an external source? And is that something that's being projected onto me, or can I support myself in strengthening this path for myself? So I love that you highlighted that and the educational piece for you to continue to support yourself and making those investments for you and this business and ultimately your family, because at the end of the day, that's also who you're supporting in addition to yourself. So that's beautiful. And I really appreciate you sharing all of that. I think we're going to wrap it up right here, unless there's anything else that you wanted to highlight before we do. But I also want to give you a chance just to do a quick overview of where our listeners can find you, whether it be on Instagram or your website. What does that look like?
Yeah. Okay. So the only last thing I want to say, I think I said it all, but I think, you always think you did, and then you think back and you're like, oh, this. But I would also say another book suggestion is Osho, The Courage of Living Dangerously. Okay. Honestly, all of his books, because there's another one about fear. I only touched 2 pages, but I love Osho as an author generally. So that is great. Some of the ideas may sound whatever. So you take and leave whatever you need, or get the concept in itself, as opposed to just focusing on the wording he chooses to use in certain parts. And then also the affirmations I would love to suggest is Tony Jones on Spotify. Hers is music. It's not just I am happy this morning. It's a song, so you can kind of bounce to it, and it's not repetitive, so it's just a great mood
uplifter.
Yeah, you know, and she talks about ones about business, work ethic, and stuff like that. So definitely encourage those ones. And if you want to find Rooted Bush Tea, you can check us out Instagram, Facebook. I'm more active on Instagram. So Rooted, ROOTED, Bush as in Bush, BUSHTTEA, Rooted Bush Tea. So across all platforms, even the website is rootedbushtea.ca. And I'm looking to add the .com. So you can find me all over there. Even email rootedbushtea@gmail.com.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Well, Chantelle, thank you so much for chatting with me and sharing this story, all those amazing book recommendations. We will definitely link those. So I appreciate you chatting with me today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so for those of you listening, if you're interested in checking out Chantelle's work, make sure to check out her Instagram, her Facebook, or her website. We will have them all linked in today's episode show notes. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please help us out and leave a review wherever you listen, and consider sharing with your friends. If you're interested in learning a bit more about the project or want to share your story, please visit our website linked in our show notes below.